Good Friday morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with daily technical update, the 4th of October. So the turmoil in the Middle East is really affecting Maersk, and we talked about it yesterday, and if it closed below 10,435, it could continue lower, and this morning it's being hammered by around 7%. If it does close below the 9,400, the support around here, well, in this region here, and we have the RSI to close below 40 threshold, well, then there is a potential down to below 9,000, maybe even 8,000 here in the coming week. So it's really looking not too bad. Really looking bad for Maersk at the moment. Really has to take out the 11,470 for any meaningful uptrend. The S&P 500, well, fairly quiet yesterday, still a correction risk down to 5,628, which is not far from here, but it could drop all the way down to 5,542 level. But we are in a bullish trend, so I don't expect the correction to be that big. If it takes out the previous peak, then I expect a push above 5,800. The Nasdaq was also fairly quiet yesterday, and trading just above 19,622, which is a key support, despite the fact that we have this Fibonacci level just below at the 38.2. Here we have the US Nasdaq 100 CFD 19,546, around that. Could be tested and could drop a little bit lower in this corrective phase. The European indices, well, we had the EUROSTOXX 50 dropping lower yesterday, taking out the minor support here at 4,943. I think we were very close to test the 4,900 yesterday. We could still see it. If it breaks below, well, then it could push down to around 4862-ish in around this area here, where we have some strong support coming up. We have the 200 moving average and the 55. The 100 is coming down a little bit here, so it's dragging a little bit on it. But there's some strong support in this region here. If we're bouncing back above the upper falling trend line here, then we could see a test of 49.86 and a close above that. Well, then we are back towards previous peaks here around 5,070 and 5,100. The DAX index doing a little bit better, dancing around the 38.2 retracement, just around 19,000. We open just below today. Can it make a bullish candle today? Then we could see it bouncing back and the upside could resume. But if we get a negative candle, then expect a downtrend to around, or sell off down to around 18,700 level. The Amsterdam index, well, it is still 908. That is key support here. If it breaks below that, then I think we will see downtrend resume, or at least we will see a push below 900 to 896, possibly lower. But we have the 21 and the 55 starting to move around here. But in overall, I think it will be range bound in this region here, just above 900. CAC 40, we talked about yesterday that it could actually sell off to 74.64. And it did, and now we are dancing around this kind of pivot point here. If it breaks below, then I think it will slide lower towards 7,300. If it can bounce from here, well, then it can move back up around 7,600. But we have the 100 moving average that is dragging on it. We also have the 200 start, slowly tilting over here. So it will be a little bit of a challenge to get up to 7,700. But it could be seen, but really strong resistance in that region there. And the Swiss market, well, sell off yesterday. We are caught around here 12,000 now, 11,875 key support. But if RSI is dropping below 40 threshold before it reaches the 11,875, then expect a further down trend. Euro dollar in a correction phase after taking out 110.83, very close to the 110, just a few pips from it. I think it will hold. We can also see that the RSI is still above 40 threshold. However, if it closes below 110, and we have a close, and that's really key here, of the RSI. If it closes below the 40 threshold, well, then we could see further selling pressure down to 109.50 and possibly even lower. But if it bounces back and moves back above 110.80, 85, well, then I think we'll see uptrend to resume on euro dollar. Euro sterling reaches a little bit higher than expected, actually, but we talked about yesterday we could surpass this 84 with the 61.8 retracement, and we did that all the way up to 786 at 84.30, and now we are setting back this morning, and I think we will set back even further. But if it starts crawling, if it takes out that peak yesterday, well, then expect a push up towards 84.65, possibly even higher, but we have some strong resistance up here. We can see the 100 coming down, 55 also coming down. I think we'll see a setback here towards the end of the weekend. And cable, also correction phase, reached the 786 retracement at 130.95. If it takes out the lows from yesterday, then I think we'll see at 130. Otherwise, expect a bounce. And I think we will end in this area here at the end of the day, and starting also early next week. That could be interesting to see what's going on. If we're moving back above 132.65, 70 around this level here, well, then uptrend is likely to, then uptrend will resume. I'm fairly confident about that. So keep an eye on these levels. Expect a little bit bounce today. Dollar yen got rejected at 147.20. It spiked just a little bit above, so 147.25 seems there's really strong resistance here, and I think we will resume downtrend. Also the RSI, let's check. Yeah, RSI got rejected at 60 threshold, so it really needs to break above this level here, and RSI needs to must close above 60 threshold for dollar yen to establish a bullish trend. Otherwise, I think we will slide back. We have the 55 moving average also coming down here, and we just looked just below it. But if it slides back below 145, I think selling pressure will increase. Euro yen couldn't get all the way up to test the 162.90 level. It spiked above here yesterday, but also here key that RSI is still below 60 threshold, needs to close above. If it does, well, then we have a different situation. We have a positive sentiment, but there is really strong overhead resistance here at 164. I think we'll see it sliding lower here towards the weekend, unless something occurs, some news that can really change that that scenario. The Aussie yen really struggling to follow through. Yes, we have built a little bit on an uptrend, but the 100 moving average is really putting a lid on it. We have some resistance here around 101.80, 102. That could be also, it could be tested. Let's see if we're sliding back below the 99.90. Well, the downtrend could resume, and it will definitely resume if we are moving back below the 98 level. That is key here. If it moves back below that, well, then downtrend is resuming. Sterling yen, well, they couldn't take out the peak from yesterday. The 100 moving average essentially seems to be really kind of putting a lid on it. There is still potential higher. We are in a positive sentiment since we have the RSI above 60 threshold. Yes, it dipped below, so it's going to be interesting here the next couple of days to see what's happening. If it takes out the lows here from the other day at 189.55, well, then expect downtrend to resume, and we have the 55 dragging on it, but the 200 is a bit indecisive, still slightly rising. So we could be caught range bound in this range here. Excuse me, between 190 and 195 for going into next week. Aussie dollar, well, correction phase underway. There's no divergence on the RSI indicating this is merely just a correction, but we had this top and reversal pattern in place with a doji evening top and reversal pattern. We had the doji here, so the sell-off there, and now another sell-off. I think we'll test the 38.2 retracement. We could also test 68. We have some support around here, around 68 is key. We could dip down to around that level. However, when we do see corrections in FX market, it is not unusual to drop all the way to 61.8, and as we have seen with euro dollar and sterling dollar, all the way to the 786 retracement. That is not unlikely to occur before bouncing back and moving higher. And if we are looking just very quickly at the weekly chart, we can see we are actually in a bullish trend. So it is key what's going on there. And we need to go back to the daily chart. And let's see here, dollar Canada at the 61.8 retracement, exactly what we talked about it often, and that's what when you're working with your Fibonacci retracement and projections. 61.8 is one of the most important one, but also 786 when it comes to the FX market. In the stock market, it's a little bit different. It's usually less. It could be a 50 or a 38.2. But dollar Canada at 135.60 and could push higher towards the 786, where we have strong overhead resistance with the 55 coming down and also the 200 moving average. So it's not unlikely we could move up to 136, and then I think we will be rejected and being sent back. But let's see here the next 24 hours and also early Monday what's going to happen. We'll have a look at sterling Canada. Also, well, it's actually dipped way below the 786 retracement, but key support here at 176.80, really key strong support, and that was going to be key. If it takes out that, then suddenly we have a completely different situation. Looking at the weekly chart, where we can see that, well, it has been sold off heavily here and actually formed kind of a top and reversal pattern. So 176.80 is really key for sterling Canada. Euro Swiss in a downtrend still, but it's not really much movement, but negative sentiment still on the R side, broken its own rising trend line. If it breaks back below 40 threshold and closes below, well, then I expect the downtrend to has resumed, and we probably see a test of the 93 level. If it takes it out, well, then we are looking at 92.5, possibly all the way to around 92, and these lows here back from August to change that picture, at least very short term, 95, and a change, it needs to break above that. But see here, we had the 100 breaking below the 200, but the 200 was rising, so it's not a death cross or anything. It's just telling you that the short to medium term we are in a bearish mood, but keep an eye on the 95 resistance. Dollar Swiss, well, it's still in this range here between 85.40 and 84, and I mean it's spiked just a few pips above. They are really testing it, but it's being sent down every single time. If it breaks above, with really a break when we are looking at levels higher than 86, and we can add a Fibonacci, and then we can see, well, where there could potentially be to maybe around 86, a little bit more than that, maybe even 86 is 70 level. Breaking out to the downside, well, then we are looking at much lower levels, but I don't think we will see that. But let's see. But if it takes out 80, 84, well, then we are looking at 83.30, possibly lower. Finally, the dollar index, when we're talking about the currency market, well, the 101.86, it tested, well, right bang on, and then we got a bit of a setback, and we have the 55 moving average also adding to the resistance here. The RSI being rejected. I think we will see a setback here over the next towards the end of the week, going into next week. However, if it does close above 101.86, well, then expect a push higher towards 102.5, maybe even 103. On the gold, well, case is still the same the past few days. 26, 24 support, If it takes out that, then we're looking at 2600 to the upside. If it takes out the correction we had up here to the 786, just about 2673. If it takes out that, then I think we'll see a push above 2700. So that's why I have all these Fibonacci levels here that are key. And if it's bearish breakout, it could test this low rising trend line there. But the RSI is still positive with no divergence, indicating likely higher levels. On silver, bounced from the 38.2 and the 61.8, depending on where you measure from, the last leg up or the entire leg up there. If it takes out a 32.75, well, then we are looking at 34.5, 35.5 levels. And if we just quickly look at the weekly, we can see what's actually going on here. We have some, and then they're going really, really far back, these levels there on silver. If it takes out to the downside 30.70 level, well, then I expect a correction lower to around 30.20, maybe even all the way down to 30. Copper also taking a little bit of breather in this region here. 450, taking out 450 and this lows here from the other day, well, then we could see a correction down to 440 and maybe even 433 around the 61.8 retracement. However, if we do close above on copper, if copper close above 470, expect further upside potential for copper. Crude oil has been on the rise, of course, with the turmoil in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. And yesterday it broke above the key strong resistance here at 72.50, around that level, 72.40. After testing a couple of times, broke above it, almost up to the 138.2 projection of this correction phase here at 74.72. And I think it will be reached, but the key will be, will RSI close above 60 threshold or not? If it doesn't, if it's being rejected and we just see a spike up, it could fall back and slide back. If it slides back below 72.40, well, the selling pressure could resume. Otherwise, if it closes above 60 threshold, well, then there's potential up to the 161.8 projection at 76.15, maybe a little bit higher. The Brent crude oil contract also above its key resistance, and I think I will adjust it a little bit, and that's what you could do, which is okay. And then we are currently at the 138.2 projection at 78.15. At the moment, as we speak, we do have RSI above 60 threshold, but will it actually close above? You can see it down here. Will it actually close above at the end of the day? That will be key. If it does close above, well, then we could see push towards 80. Maybe even we will see that before But if you're going long, keep your stops tight. It could slide back, and if it takes out 75.50 again here, well, then expect the Brent crude oil to trade in this area, maybe selling pressure to resume. And let's have a look at US Treasury yields. We'll start with the 10-year as usual, but we also will have a look at the 2-year. Well, the 10-year actually broke above its little resistance here at 382, almost up to the 786 retracement. And let's zoom in so we can see it more clearly. It actually established a bullish trend, but there is some strong resistance. You can see the 55 coming down here, kind of putting a lid on it. But there really strong resistance is 392 and a little bit 392.3, and keep an eye on the RSI. It needs to close above 60 threshold. If it does, well, then there's further upside potential for the 10-year Treasury yield, but I think we will slide back a little bit here towards the end of the weekend, unless there's some other news coming in. The US 2-year still in this sideways range, but it seems to start trying to build up something. And if it can get back above 366, I would say 367, well, then we could also see a bounce up to around 380, maybe 375, but 380 could also be seen 381, which is the 61.8 retracement. And interestingly, this one is placed, sorry about that. So these are the levels here, 382. But for now, still sideways moving in on the US 2-year Treasury. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice weekend when you get to that. Talk to you again Monday.